What's up, guys? I'm Derek. Welcome to my channel, Euro Superbike Life. In this 9th episode of my dedicated track bike build for my BMW S1000RR. Today, we've got quite a bit of work to do. It's Saturday. My track day is tomorrow. And not only do I have to finish the bike, but then I got to prep my RV and get ready for tomorrow. So this is why I hate working on bikes the day before a track day. But you remember in the previous episode, we removed the rear wheel and sprocket assembly. We removed the rear shock so that we can install our super light 520 conversion kit complete with a DID chain and our Nitron racing rear shock. This is a work of art, guys. I'm not even sure if I want to install it. I think I might just mount it on my wall up here next to my Patriot gear and take a peek at it and, you know, just admire it. But this thing is absolutely gorgeous. It is all titanium. It has a hydraulic preload adjuster. It is built to specifically my specs, my weight, for the type of riding I'm going to do. And I can't say enough about it. It's phenomenal. But we got to put it on the bike. So without further ado, let's stop talking and get to work. So roll the intro. All right, guys, we are over here at my tire changer. The wheel's not locked in. It's just sitting on top here. And we are going to remove this rear sprocket. You need a 18 mil, a 1/2 inch drive. I'm going to use air tools this time, so I'm using an 18 mil socket, and we're going to spin these off. All right, and off comes our old sprocket. We'll set that aside, maybe sell it on eBay or something. And we're going to install our new super light 46 tooth sprocket. I took off the old stock 44 tooth. Now, BMW recommends that you change these when you change your sprocket. And I'm not doing that right now because I'm going to replace these with titanium units. And they haven't come in yet. So I don't want to spend the money to run over to BMW to get these and, you know, and then take them off and, you know, chuck them or whatever. So I'm going to reuse them. But again, you're not supposed to because these these bolts actually stretch a little bit. So you're supposed to replace them every time you pop these nuts off. You're supposed to replace them all. So we'll do that later. So right now I'm just going to put these snug, and then I'll break out my torque wrench and I'll torque them down to the proper values. This is one area where I will be a torque Nazi. It's your rear sprocket. You don't want that thing coming loose or falling off. All types of bad. In fact, there are no good things that could happen from a loose sprocket. Now I'll get my torque wrench here, and we will set it to 81 foot-pounds. And we'll torque these down in a star pattern. All right, our sprocket is all torqued, so now let's move over to the back of the bike and we'll install our Nitron racing shock. Okay guys, so we're over here at the back of the bike. I have the bolts here, so I have the lower link bolt and the upper and lower shock mount bolts. And I'm just gonna put some blue Loctite on here just to make sure they don't back out. Lower bolt is in. Come over here to the other side. Come over here to that side and just hand tighten the nut. All right. Now we are going to reinstall the linkage bolt that we took out. Looks about right. I'm gonna get my T55 Torx and my extension. Just work this in by hand. I think I'm threaded now, so now I'm gonna get my ratchet. My air ratchet, that is. And we'll just run this in. Okay, so we're ready to install the top of the rear shock mount. There's a couple of spacers that Nitron sends with this unit, and they're zip tied together, so I'm going to just clip that zip tie off. Hopefully they don't just fall out on me. And one pulled out, yeah, look at that. So I'm just going to muscle this up by hand, get it lined up. Adjuster. And then we're going to slide the screw through. Trying to get this lined up. And now we're just going to tighten this up by hand with our Torx bit T50. Make sure we don't push the spacers out. All right, we are on there. Now let's grab our torque wrench and we'll tighten everything down to specs. So what I found is 41 foot-pounds for the upper and lower shock bolts. I haven't been able to find one for the linkage, but I'll keep looking and we'll just torque these down. So I have my 3/8 drive ratchet with my T50 Torx, and we are just going to torque this down. And my puppy's barking. There we go. The Nitron racing shock is all torqued down, upper and lower. Now it's time to reinstall our rear subframe, and then we'll put the rear tire and sprocket on. So I'm just going to unhook my bungee cord, swing this down, put my rear brake hose back in place. Now once we have everything on, then we'll find a location for our reservoir, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put it. Maybe back here or something like that. I don't know, but we'll find a spot for it once we get all the body and everything back on and everything's tightened up. And I don't want to put it on somewhere now and then not be able to get to it. So we won't worry about that just yet. So this is down back in place. Now let's get some bolts, put them back in on the sides. So again, I'm going to use some blue Loctite on these just so they don't back out. Let me change the angle of attack here for you guys. Right. I think these are what? There we go. Okay. One side down, one side go. Now we'll do the same thing on the uppers. All right, now we can move on to the rear wheel. Okay guys, we're back here by the rear wheel, and before I reinstall the rear wheel and sprocket carrier assembly, I want to show you guys really quick the rear brake pad and caliper setup. And this is a really good time to change your brake pads. Changing the rear brake pads is super simple to begin with. There's literally just this cotter pin here. You pull the pin out, and then you slide out the slide pin, and the calipers just fall out. So on the back of the front, or the front of the caliper here, you can see the caliper sits, or the pad sits in a channel here on the caliper. And all you do is push that out of the front of there. The whole pad will swing down. And now all you need to do is remove this pin, the cotter retaining pin, slide out the slide pin, and the pads come off, and then you put them back in reverse order. Put that back on here, slide the pad back forward, and then put it back in the channel here. That is it. There's really not a whole lot to it. This job can be done in probably about 5-10 minutes, but like I said, seeing you already have the rear wheel off, now is probably a good time to do something like that. So let's get the rear wheel back on. All right, I'm back. I have the pieces all cleaned up here. You can see axles all nice and cleaned up. My spacer all nice and cleaned, along with the bolts, the nut and the spacer. So now I'm just gonna smear some. Pardon me. Ooh, look at that. I also repacked the wheel bearings on both sides as well. So just precautionary stuff that you should do. So it's already off, so it takes me 30 seconds, so you might as well do it. So now I'm just gonna re-grease the axle, and then we're gonna put the wheel and hub assembly back on. And I'm not gonna tighten everything down because, like I said, we still need to get the chain off, which is the next step in our process. All right, guys, so we're about to remove the chain. You can see the bike is off the side stand, and it's on my pit bull rear stand. And we're gonna remove the chain. Now, there are several ways to remove the chain, and there are plenty of YouTube videos on it. You can remove it anywhere from, air-powered grinder, electric grinder, or your standard chain breaker. It really depends on if you plan on keeping the chain and so forth, or if you're just gonna junk it. If you're just gonna junk it, then just cut the damn thing off. I'm a type of person that likes to grind the heads off of the link and then just push or pull it out. Other people prefer to use the chain breaker method. Using the chain breaker method typically doesn't work for me. For whatever reason, I tend to break pins. So I just like to grind the heads off and then pull it out. So that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, so chain off. Now we have plenty of space in here to remove our front sprocket. And as you can see, there's, hopefully you can, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can zoom in on that for you. Alright, hopefully you can see this, but there's a retaining ring here that's bent around the nut that helps retain the nut. So we have to bend that back with the chisel and hammer, and then we'll be able to spin this off with a air wrench. We shouldn't have to worry about it spinning. I should be able to get enough torque on there to get it off. Otherwise, we'll just have to jam a screwdriver in there or something like that to keep it from spinning, and we'll back that off. Okay, now let's get our air tools, zap that puppy off. Okay, I am back. I have hit it with the air tool a couple of times, loosened this up. So we're just gonna spin this puppy off. Off comes that retainer ring and our nut. And guess what? Our sprocket slides right off. Now you wanna make note of how it goes back on. There's a wide side and then a flatter, more flush side. The wider side goes on the inside, and the flatter side goes on the outside. Probably similar to the video where I changed the front sprocket on my Aprilia RSV4 factory. I'll put the link right up there. But again, you want to just note the orientation of that. So let's go get our new sprocket. So here is our new 16 tooth. As you can see, it's 16 right there. There's a light right there, 16 tooth. And again, we're gonna mount it wide side. We're gonna mount it this way. Take our spacer, put that back on. Take our nut, put that back on. Front sprocket on. Now we just need to put on our new chain. Okay guys, so as you can see, I have the chain installed. I have the link pin all installed and on, and I'm ready to dimple the link pin. So I got my chain breaker installer here. And we're gonna screw this in. I got my anvil. And I have my pin in my spring. So we're gonna just drop that in there, drop that in there. And screw on the end. And that will just dimple the chain. Now again, there are a ton of YouTube videos on this, so I'm not doing anything new. I'm sure there are a lot of guys out there that have way more details on how to do this than I do. Here we go. So the goal here is just to flare these out a little bit so this link won't come off. So we are on there nice and good. Now what we need to do is need to adjust the chain slack, and that means we'll move the, we'll use our Li-Tech chain adjusters and we'll move the axle back a little bit. All right, so that's too tight. So we'll back this up. It's actually pretty good right there. So we got good chain slack right there right now, so that's good. We'll tighten up our rear axle and reinstall our safety wire, and then we just need to sit around and wait for Mr. US Postal Service guy to show up with my hose clamps, and then we can change out the stock hoses for our Samco silicone hoses. All right. That is it for episode 9, I think it is, guys. We got the shock in, we got our 520 conversion kit done. So we're good for today. I think that's probably gonna eat up all of my 15 minutes. Tune into the next episode where we replace the stock hoses for the Samco hoses, and we flush out the engine ice and replace it with water wetter. I'll put the body and the tank back on, and then we get to load all of this stuff up on my RV and prep for my track day at Arizona Motorsports Park tomorrow. So, I'm Derek, this is Euro Superbike Life. Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you next time. Take care.